Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. My name is Laura Bradburn. It's Friday and I'm joined as always by Tony Haggerty. How are you, Tony?
I'm very well, Laura. Yourself?
And the wonderful Jim Orr. Jim, how are you doing?
Fine, Laura. How are you?
Not too bad. Another week at Celtic, and as far as things have gone, relatively unfortunately quiet week news-wise. We keep hoping for this announcement coming, but nothing is near being finalised by the looks of it, although there does seem to be some movement in the background, but we'll get into that a bit later. The first thing I wanted to talk about today was, for anybody who hadn't seen it, if you subscribe to a State of Mind YouTube channel, you'll get other Celtic content, other football content and other non-football content, but if you were watching on Wednesday night, Paul, John and Natasha Meikle hosted a kind of town hall, open forum, sort of live broadcast with contributors from various podcasts. I think Andy from Four Tims in a podcast was there. Hamish from 67 Hail Hail was there. There was a few contributors, but they were there to speak to the Celtic Trust and Celtic Shared around the sort of movement that is going on with Celtic Shared and Celtic Trust around trying to get some shares from the club, either as compensation for the lack of perceived value for the season tickets this season, or just as part of a share issue to allow fans to be more involved in the club. Jim, I'll come to you first on it. As somebody who is not very well versed in finances, and my dad might even say not very fiscally responsible, could you explain to us a little bit? Well, yeah. Could you explain to us a little bit about what your understanding of this whole movement is and what the point of it is?
I think for anyone tuning in, I need to say that every week Laura gives us homework. So this was her homework for the week. Go away and watch a 2-hour podcast. So I did that last night. Do you want the short 10-second answer or do you want the 2-minute answer?
Oh, 2-minute answer will do. Need to fill this up somehow.
2-minute answer. Okay. I think the first thing is to say that I think well done to Paul for hosting it in Axel, and well done to Natasha for facilitating it. I thought it was a bit cluttered, to be perfectly honest. We're often a lot of tangents, and people talk about individuals that are involved, and Celtic Trust, Celtic Shared, the Green Brigade apparently involved. So people were, and there was a lot of stuff in the chat room about, well, I'm not getting involved if they're involved, etc., etc. But for me, I think there was 3 distinct areas. One was the club's decision making, second, the club's communication, and third, fans' representation. So in terms of the club's decision making, it's been really poor for the past few seasons. I think we'd all agree with that. And this season, it's been appalling. You know, things like Dubai as an example. But we've covered that extensively. I can't believe the club didn't do some sort of scenario planning last summer to whether fans would be back at all games, no games, some games. And if they assumed that nobody was going to be coming back, what would be the options? And one would assume that they did do some planning to say, well, if the fans didn't come back, we've got 2 extremes here. Give them nothing back or give them a full refund. And we're never going to do either of those two. So the answer is going to be somewhere in the middle. So what did they decide to do? We've got no idea because the communication is really, really poor. So we don't know what they decided to do. And if they have decided something, they haven't told us. You know, so that's 8 months ago. They still haven't told us. And they could have surveyed the fans. You know, they could have given the fans a few options. Did you want to actually vote on this? What do you think yourself? And I've said in pods in the past that you have to view Celtic as a public limited company. You know, and the example I used before is they're no different to me than something like Amazon, right? Because their job is to make as much money for the shareholders as possible. That's their objective. That's not our objective as fans, but that's their objective. And without going all Kevin Graham on you, I'll give you an analogy that if you bought a £600 TV for my actually the next day and said, that's out of stock. We'll give you your £600 back, or we've got another TV that's worth a couple £100. We'll give you that plus your money back. What do you want to do? And that would put the choice back to you, and that's solved within a day. You either get your money back, or you get something, and the balance back to you. What did Celtic do? This is out of stock. You can't come to the games, and we'll now give you a stream, and that's it. 8 months ago, that's what they told us, and there's been no communication in that 8 months. So I've no idea what's actually happened with this. So what we have here, Tony, is a failure to communicate. That's a quote from a famous film. Name that film.
Yes.
So what do we do? So what do we do as fans? Because actually we've got no representation. You know, they haven't spoke to us, and we don't really speak to them, because there's lots of different organisations who purport to represent Celtic fans, Celtic Trust, Celtic Shared, affiliation of Celtic fans, etc., etc. And no matter what anyone says, it will be the usual that they don't speak for me. You know, Paul John Dykes doesn't speak for me, Natasha Meikle doesn't speak for me. But there's the Celtic Trust have come along and Celtic Shared and said, here's a wee idea about this. And that's all it is. It's just one idea to say that. How about, if you're going to compensate the fans, give it as shares? Because that's a win-win. It doesn't cost the club any money at all. And that's all it was. It's just an idea. Why don't you give the club, why don't you give the fans shares? And once they've got those shares, they can then sell those shares. What value you put on that, you know, that's for another debate. And I can spend another few minutes talking about that. But to me, it was a very simple thing. It was just, is getting shares back as compensation a good idea? And in my humble opinion, it's a very good idea, because it's a win-win. It doesn't cost the club any money, and fans will get shares in return. As long as those shares have value, and those fans can exchange those shares for money. And I know that the majority of the 50,000 plus season ticket holders don't deal in shares, so give them a guide as to how you sell these shares. Here's some shares, here's how you sell them if you want to sell them, and you'll get some cash back. So that's my very simplistic view of what happened the other night.
I think there was a lot of interesting points raised, and I think like what Jim says, we can get too caught up in who the people are behind it and that kind of thing. Tony, I know we've had a discussion, but I'll say what my situation is on that view of things. You know, the Green Brigade are at pains to say that they are not driving this and it's not really a Green Brigade fronted issue, but I personally, my opinion on that is that you know, they've used their profile as the Green Brigade to get a backing behind them for Celtic Shared. And so you can't really, it would be very hard to divide those two bodies. And I do think that that's going to be a barrier for getting momentum behind this movement, because there are fans out there who like Jim was mentioning, that whole issue of, you know, they don't speak for me, and certainly the Green Brigade don't speak for me. It is going to be a barrier to people getting involved and getting behind this movement. What do you think of that, Tony?
First of all, Cool Hand Luke was the film, the failure to communicate.
Well done, that man.
Yeah.
Well done, that man.
Like my Paul Newman. Anyway, I liked the way Jim broke that down, because I've got to be honest, I started to watch it and do my homework like the good schoolboy I was, and I found it all very dry. As Jim said, tangent, and people are going off at tangents, and you know, I think a lot of Celtic supporters might have got lost in that. The room could have been lost very quickly. I get the ideas behind it, I get the kind of premise behind it, and as Jim broke it down there to me in simple layman terms, give the fans shares and let the people decide if they want, and give them a guide how to keep them or sell them, but let them get some monetary compensation or recompense on this. And I think that's fair enough, because as you and I spoke of, Cameron, we said if people want to buy Celtic shares, they buy them, but there's only a certain amount of people that can do that, you know, because they have the money to do that. And whilst the Celtic Shared and the Celtic Trust are not, I think there are issues and the issue that they've raised and what they're trying to do, the idea is as sound as a pound, you know. So I'm with them on that, and if I'm with Celtic supporters that want to try and get shares, but the ideal world is you get enough shares to get representation on the board. I just think that's never really happened in Celtic history. And then, as Jim said, who becomes that person? Celtic Trust, Celtic Share, the affiliation of Celtic Sport. How do you then narrow that down to one person sitting on the board? You know, it's an ideology, which I think we spoke about before, which I just don't think will ever come to fruition. But I'm not against the Trust or the Shared boys and any other Celtic supporter acquiring shares and doing with them what they will. It's up to the individuals concerned.
I don't think the other night was all about. Sorry, Laura. I think.
On you go, Jim.
I don't think what the other night was about was getting people to join the Celtic Trust or Celtic Shared or anything else. It was just about, here's an idea. Do you think this is a good idea? And that's why I said earlier that could have been an option that the Celtic board back in October, November could have said, "What do you fans think?" Because I get emails. I must get 4 or 5 emails a week from Celtic asking me to buy stuff. So it'd be quite easy for them to have said in October, November, a wee bit of customer service to say it's unfortunate. It doesn't look like we're going to get back into the grounds. We're looking at some options here. You, the fans, what do you think? Here's option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one of those options might be having shares. And I think the other night was all about saying, do you think it's a good idea, guys? It's a good idea. It's a win-win.
Did he ask you to buy a share for 640 quid, Jim?
Not yet.
No, yeah.
Not yet.
I think Jim raised a good point. I think Jim raised a good point when he was talking before about the options that haven't been available. I heard some people saying, if you didn't want to pay £600 and potentially not get into a game, then just don't pay the £600. But there's a lot of issues going to that. People are emotionally attached to the season ticket that they have. They've maybe been sitting in the same seat for years. They don't want to lose that seat. They thought potentially they might get back in. And also, all it would have taken to put that whole conversation to bed, like you said, was for Celtic to come out in September, October last year when it was looking more clear that people wouldn't get back into the stadiums and say, listen, do you want a refund? Do you want shares? Do you want, how can we refund this? Because as we've spoken about before, the added value that they talked about has not been significant in terms of the quality of the output and things like that and what's been available. But I don't know. Jim, do you think that there would be a massive uptake of shares if they did come out and say specifically that is how they're going to refund fans with the season tickets?
No idea. The whole point is just asking them. And just the point you made a minute ago there about fans are saying, well, it's up to you to buy a £600 season ticket or not. The reason I'm making the comparison to somebody like Amazon, is that what you say to them? You don't have my £600 TV, therefore it's my fault for giving you £600 and you've given me a £200 TV and ignored me. Would you accept that? You wouldn't accept that. And that's what the Celtic board play on at times. And I totally understand that there's no way that Celtic could refund all the money. And we keep talking about £600, but let's just call it, because I'm paying £600, let's just keep on the £600. So in terms of season ticket revenue, it must be around about the £20 million mark when you take that off the thing. So £20 million at stake here. If you give half the money back, then there's a £10 million hole. Nobody wants to see Celtic having a £10 million hole because we want a good manager and a good team and we want all this kind of stuff. So it's a bit we understand our situation. If it was Amazon, we couldn't care less if they went bust tomorrow because it's just getting my TV in here. So you have to, that's the way the board think about the fans. And the fans have to kind of think, hold on, there may be messing about here. So I totally get, last year was, they eventually offered a refund last year. And I took the refund, it was £120. And on the same day that happened, the SFA announced they were taking no further action on Resolution 12 issues, right? And I then spoke to somebody who I knew was involved in the Resolution 12 to say, I've got my refund back. If you want any financial help, I've got 120 quid here. I'm happy to put it towards something like that. So I understand people. Nothing to say also the fact that this has been a horrendous year for people. People, I'm in a very fortunate position. If I don't get a refund, I don't get a refund. I'm not that bothered. But there's going to be people who have bought 2 or 3 season tickets, who invest a couple of grand, who may have lost their jobs, or members of the family don't have the money. And people making choices about buying season ticket, that's the first choice. Can they afford that? Forget who the new manager is and forget getting refunds and all that kind of stuff. Some people can't afford to buy a season ticket. That'll be the main thing. And all I am looking for is for a bit of customer service, right? If I'm viewed as a customer, then treat me like a customer. Don't ignore me. And I can send emails to John Paul Taylor, etc., but what you need actually is some representation, and that's what the Celtic Trust have done. And I said to somebody, back in October, November, shares would be quite a good idea. And a few months later, the Celtic Trust have taken up the baton. They could actually do something about that. I couldn't. As one fan, I couldn't say, oh, by the way, give us some shares. But the Celtic Trust, I've got, people behind it. So it's a good thing we've got some sort of representation. People might not like the Celtic Trust, might not like the idea of it, might not like the people involved. But all they've really done here is to say, here's an option. As I said, it's not about joining them. It's about saying, here's an option to think about. It's no more than that for me.
Yeah, Tony, I think Jim raised a really interesting point there. I think the club will be aware to some extent that they have people over an emotional barrel, if you want to put it that way.
Club
and
that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what I was going to come and say. What are your thoughts on that? Because I do think that they're playing on that at the moment, not being clear on what the situation is with the season tickets, knowing that people will do anything that they can to continue having it, unless, as Jim says, they're in the very unfortunate position that the pandemic has hit them in the pocket, or they don't see the value in paying for something that they're currently not getting anything out of like that.
I've said this before. I think this was the season to treat the Celtic supporters as fans. This season in particular, because they've been let down by the board big time this season. They deserve something, but it's just a general malaise. They're out of touch with the fans now. And as Jim says, they're going to come back and treat you like a customer, because that's what they always do. They don't see you as a supporter or a fan. They see you as a customer base. That's wrong from the start. And that's one of the first things I would readdress if I was Dominic Mackay or any PR team. You've got to get the emotional heart and soul of Celtic back in the core of those fans. Got to win them back. So one of the first things you would do is offer refunds or shares to those who bought season tickets last year, and give them that option, whether they want a cash refund or they want it in the form of shares. And I think Jim's right. It's given them a choice. But you have to turn around and communicate that to them. And they could have done that a long, long time ago. And it's just, as I say, it's just a real general malaise and a total breakdown of communication with everybody. We hope things can get better. But this is the way they're going to treat a customer base. They still don't know who the new manager is. And they're going to be asked to fork out £600, for want of a better figure, as Jim says, for a season ticket, not knowing who's going to be taking them into the next season. We're going to get the renewals falling through the door as early as Monday or Tuesday. People are saying, correct me if I'm wrong, or as soon as that possibly. I just think that's a scandalous way for any business, but any football club to run their affairs. Treated the Celtic supporters like dirt this season, and they're hurting. And a lot of people will have lost their jobs during this pandemic. They're due something. They're just a form of communication, and they're due money. If they want the money, they should have that option. Or if they want the shares for that emotional attachment, or to feel emotionally involved at their club again, then offer them shares. But this is the time when the Celtic board in particular just play on everybody's emotions and say, right, how much are you going to give us? How much do you love your club? Are you going to renew again? And some supporters will have fallen out of love with Celtic at various points this season. And there's going to be taking some convincing to get them to come back on board or to renew their season books. Most people just do it automatically, but a lot of people will be having second thoughts. Totally.
Well, I said back in October, Laura, one of the first podcasts I was on, see, they had a plan. If there was a plan in place, what they would have said would be, and these are kind of rough figures, that for every game you miss, we'll give you £15 back. Because you're paying on average about £30 a game. So if you miss a game, we'll give you £15 back. Right? And that puts the value of watching the game on TV at £15. And then put the game in pay-per-view and try and get 50,000 other Celtic fans in the UK and Ireland to sign up for the season on pay-per-view £15. And given we're going for the 10, I'd imagine we'd have got 50,000 other fans happy to pay 15 quid a game, and that'd make up for the shortfall. I keep everyone happy. The guys that paid their season tickets, they're getting 15 quid back, and the ones who want to watch the game, because there's been loads of people in the early part of this season haven't had the chance to watch the game. Now, I know the season has turned out pear-shaped, but if you go back to August and September, we're all dead excited about this season. And if you don't have a season ticket, and there's a Celtic game on, you'd have gladly paid £15 to watch it in pay-per-view. That's a plan. That's a strategy. That's a vision. But to put your head in the sand, and also you'd have noticed during the season, other clubs' fans have come on and said, we'd like to watch the game today from Parkhead, from Celtic Park. We can't watch it, it's not in pay-per-view. So they've lost those customers as well. So there has to be some sort of vision, some sort of plan. I know, I just, you ran over. I have moaned enough today. And it's only 20 minutes in.
They're always reactionary. They're never visionary. We're always reacting to something. We've spoken about this on pods before. They're always reacting to losing the title. Or, there's no vision. There's no 3, 5, 7 year plans. There's nobody constantly updating you, telling you where they're going, where they see themselves in such and such, such and such a time. It's never been like that, which is why they end up in the state they're in right now.
I think that's an excellent point. I think the relaxation of the media embargoes as far as the airing of games is concerned over this season and what looks like going to be next season as well, how somebody with a business head on them at the club couldn't say, not only is this a chance to reward the season ticket holders that aren't able to get to the games, this is a chance for us to make a bit extra money off people who wouldn't even be at the stadium anyway. I think that would be
one last point on this, Laura.
Yep.
To make one last point on this, people have said the value of the stream is £90, and they're basing that on if you get a Celtic TV subscription abroad, it's £180 for home and away games. Think about that. For £180, you get every single Celtic game. And usually there's, high 50s, maybe 60 games a season. £180 for 60 games, £3 a game.
Yeah.
I know I'll not be very popular with overseas fans. £3 a game. If you're overseas, if you live in New Zealand, it only costs you £3 to watch Celtic. That should be £10 at least. That's just...
Even this season, that would have been overpriced, Jim.
Okay. Notwithstanding this season. But, you're not offering... I know you can't offer fans in this country because of, as you said, Laura, there's restrictions on that. But if you did offer you... Imagine only having to pay £3 to watch the Celtic game. That's shockingly undervalued,
Yeah. I
Second
think,
run
I think
over.
there's,
Okay.
I think there's plenty of ways in which they could take it forward. But we'll see what happens. Thanks everybody for making your comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We are live, as I said before. You can subscribe to A State of Mind on YouTube, and you can see all the comments, all the content. From A State of Mind. We've got an ever-expanding list of shows, football and non-football related, for you to get involved with. And I think we averaged last month something like 3 shows a day or something like that. So we are really up in the content, and it's lots of really high-quality stuff. But we will move on to the next topic, which is... I was watching the... output from Celtic this morning, the interview with John Kennedy. Tony, I'll come to you first on this. I get that the old adage is, and the cliche is, that he speaks very well. I read the quotes, and perhaps it was because I was reading them rather than listening to him say them. I felt he was talking a little bit... I think he talks very politely and confidently when you hear him speak. But when you see what he's said written down, it's a lot of football cliches for me. Sort of stuff about setting your stall out and being organised and trying your best and whatever the other cliches are.
The team that scores the most goals wins.
Yeah, that kind of thing, exactly. We would have won if we hadn't conceded more goals than the other team. Do you think that as time's going on, I'm maybe setting you up for an unfair question here, but that maybe his limitations are becoming more apparent, at least in terms of what we're able to see through the media?
It's possible. I also think that maybe in the back of his mind he's been told that, he's not getting the manager's job and he might not be at the club next season. So, I think, body language, people would have a field day with those kind of things, study it and his answers, because what you've said to me there, because I haven't heard or read what you said yet, it strikes me as something. Well, it's maybe something that someone is going through the motions now.
Yeah.
Just kind of, okay, this is it. Just with another game, okay, well, all right, it's Rangers. But if you're talking about he's giving it Settler Stall out and all that, you want a wee bit more than that from your Celtic manager. You want a wee bit more kind of knowledge as to how we're going to try and set about Rangers and stop their unbeaten league record so far this season. You'd want to know a wee bit more than that. But as I say, I've not heard or read what he said, but I don't know. It's dead rubbers now, isn't it? Although the one on Sunday isn't a dead rubber because Celtic have got both sides have got something to play for, and you'd like to think Celtic could match Rangers in that game. But if that's what's coming from the manager, then does he fill you with any great confidence that the players are going to be lifted, or battering, kicking hinges off doors, and punching walls before they go out on that park on Sunday? I hope the opposite's true, but I just from what you're saying there, if he's just shrugging his shoulders, it sounds as if he's just going through the motions a bit, and I don't particularly like that. I'd still want a rallying cry from a Celtic manager going into a Rangers game on Sunday if he's speaking to the press. Some kind of soundbite that makes me think, all right, cool, they're certainly not giving up the ghost.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line, Jim, to be balanced between, how much do we expect a manager to say without giving the game away, so to speak, before the game. But I'm in agreement with Tony. I know, the comments only came out about half an hour before we came on air, so that's why it wasn't part of your homework assignment. That would have been too much to expect, but.
So you're not marking down for that then? Good, okay. Good.
Well, yeah, no, I'm a fair teacher, I have to say. Okay. No, but I think I think he's probably been trying to straddle the line between giving too much away and not. But what are your thoughts as time's going on, as what you've seen from him? Because I know you've said before, we don't really know what he does, we don't really know what he's good at. What are your opinions of him as time is going on?
I think you've asked a few questions there. I think the first one was about what he's said. I wouldn't expect much from a manager before the game. There's only so many things you can say, and you start to repeat yourself, and it just sounds silly if you keep saying the same things. So I think this game is not a dead rubber for the fans. I think it's a dead rubber for the team. I don't think the team have anything to play for. All this talk about trying to stop them unbeaten season, the players aren't bothered about that. You tell me Edward's bothered. Of course he's not bothered. So that's the issue I have about Sunday. Well, yeah, they should be, but they don't. I think they've got their own agendas in here. And the thing I said last week or the week before is, unfortunately, because we've taken so much time to appoint a new manager, the man who's in place just now has got a different objective to the club. If I'm John Kennedy, I don't want to do anything daft. I don't want to affect my CV. I don't want to go there on Sunday and get an absolute do-in. So I'm going to be cautious. I'm sure we'll come on to the team soon enough, but I'm sure he's going to play virtually the same team as he played last time, maybe with Saltman left out, because he wants to not do anything silly. Whereas maybe you or I would be saying, well, what should you do? Don't play Edward because he's chucked it. Don't play this guy. Don't play that guy. Play these guys. That's not his objective. His objective, I think, if he comes out with a 0-0 on Sunday, he'll be perfectly happy with that. And the players will go through the motions. One or two won't. Maybe you're Scott Brown, because the chances are he will play Scott Brown. He won't go through the motions, and two or three others won't. But if you're, John Joe Kenny, if he plays, are you bothered? I don't think they're that bothered. I know for us, it's not a dead rubber. We want to win the game. But I just think, from a John Kennedy point of view, I said before, I think he's been quite clever. I think he's made some incremental changes. We've had a better shape about us. We've made tons and tons of chances. The last game we played, we made 5 or 6. Brilliant chances, not half chances, brilliant chances. We take our chances. It's a different game. I think he's done okay. I don't think he should be. Sorry, you go, Tony.
As you say, we didn't take our chances. Well, that's the point. I still think that, I don't know, maybe, I guess everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I just still thought they played poorly at Ibrox,
This is where I'm going to put the question to you. So this is where I'll put the question to you then. We all know we spoke about Lee Griffiths last week, and you guys had a different opinion from me. Jim, I'll put it to you first. If we're going to take our chances, even I will concede the best chance we have of taking our chances of having Lee Griffiths up front. Would you play him from the start?
For me, he's the first name in the team sheet on Sunday.
We agree on that.
Thanks, pal. He wants to go to the Euros. He's actually somebody who would care. He won't see that as a dead rubber. No way will he see that as a dead rubber. And there's maybe another 3 or 4, maybe 5 players round about him won't see it as that. If Edouard plays, you're going to get the same performance you got last week passing Sunday there. You get the same performance. Because if you're Austin Edwards, again, I think you have to put yourself into the players. Austin Edwards is a few weeks away from possibly a changing move. There's a 50-50 ball. You're going to go for it? I don't think so. I'm not saying that would happen. I'm saying that if I'm Austin Edwards, maybe that's the way I'm thinking. You know, this season's been a complete write-off, been a waste of time. Do I want to get hurt this Sunday? No, really. That's why I wouldn't play him. That's why I played Lee Griffiths first. I would play people who are going to be here next year. So no John Joe Kennys and no Laxalts, no Elianusis. If Jamesy Forrest is fit, brilliant. If he's not, I take a gamble with young Dembele. I mean, there's no way we'll play him, but I would have a gamble. On you go for it. But I'm not the manager. And from the manager's point of view, I think he wants to play safe on Sunday. And as I said before, if he gets out with a 0-0, he'll be perfectly happy. And I can see him playing both Scott Brown and Sorrow on Sunday. You know, maybe matching their formation. Because that's quite a low risk formation. Just, try not to lose any goals. Don't lose any goals and get a 0-0. I think that's maybe how things are going Sunday. I know I'm jumping the gun a wee bit. You were only at...
Start with a 0-0.
Kiwi you've got. I think that's possibly, yeah.
For those reasons you outlined, Odsonne Edwards shouldn't be anywhere near a start on Sunday. For the fact that he'll just go through the motions and he'll know, and he might jeopardise the move, which is why I would want Lee Griffiths. He'll chase balls into corners, he'll hit them from anywhere. The minute he picks up the ball, the first thing's on his mind is, can I get a strike away here? Left, right, at the angle, it doesn't matter. He'll just start. He has a shoot on sight policy, Lee Griffiths, when he gets the ball anywhere near the goal, which I quite like. I've always liked that about him. And and quite a high percentage of them end up in the net because he's quite accurate. And he also takes a great set piece. Watching Edwards' set pieces of late have been, again, a guy that's gone through the motions. If he gets it up and over the wall, great. If he doesn't, so be it. Lee Griffiths is pretty deadly from set pieces. So I think you've got to sort of turn on your John Kenny and say, right, it does matter. It should matter to the players as much as it matters to the fans. Because the Celtic supporters are, quite rightly, have this invincible tag that they earned under Brendan Rodgers. They don't want Rangers to come anywhere near that. And they will call themselves invincible if they go the whole league season unbeaten. You can argue the toss about the 2 cup ties, but Arsenal are called invincible because they went a league season unbeaten in England. So it's usually
come on, Tony. We won't get drawn into a petty squabble about what we call each other and what's real and what's not. We would never do that.
But that's just going to happen, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's so honestly, if Celtic don't go out there and give their all on Sunday, then I would be asking questions. I'd be asking questions of the managers and the players, because they have to show something. It's the one time, it's the last chance for them to actually do something this season and give a bit of payback to the supporters, because they've let them down the whole time. So go out in Ibrox and give your all. And if you're John Kennedy, pick a team of players that will give their all, which means the likes of Edward doesn't play, John Joe Kennedy doesn't play, Laxalt, Elianusi don't play. I agree with you there. Pick a team of guys that you think, okay, if anything, they'll play for that for 90 minutes and go and attack Rangers and go and get a victory.
Well, Tony, this was something I was going to say to you. I was going to get your thoughts on it. Celtic Bible tweeted out the goals from the 5-0 win 3 years ago. And one thing that stood out to me in that video was, I think it was Tierney coming down the left, and he was about to cut the ball back, but the goalkeeper was out of the goal. The defenders were all over towards where the ball was coming from. And Rogic was standing at the edge of the box with an open goal in front of him, screaming for the ball, jumping, waving his hands, and we were already 3-0 up. And obviously, eventually it got to him and he swept it in. Now, before anybody in the comments says I'm saying we should play Rogic, I am not saying we should play Rogic on Sunday. I'm not saying we should play Laxalt on Sunday. I'm not saying we should play anybody on Sunday in particular with this. But what I was going to say to you, Tony, is what stood out to me there was somebody desperate to score a 4th goal in a derby match.
Yeah.
We don't even seem to have a team that are desperate to get ahead in the derby match.
You don't have players that can score a goal in a derby match. We've scored 1 in 4 outings this season. 4? Yeah, 4.
Scored more for Rangers than we have for ourselves, I think.
Yes, well, there you go. Right, we even had the ignominy of a derby without a shot on target, a shot at goal in the first one of the season, which is unheard of, which is again another reason why Lee Griffiths should play, because if you take those 4 games or 5 games, Lee Griffiths will have more shots on Sunday if he plays than those 5 games put together than any of the Celtic attackers. That's a fact. Because that's his game, that's what he does. So, yeah, I agree with you completely. They have to go out and be hungry for it on Sunday and play and show that it means something. Jim's entitled to his opinion. He's saying, do they care? They have to show they care. There's a new manager possibly watching them as well, some of them. So go and show you care. Or other guys might know who the new manager is, so they might want a word with them to see if they have a future at the club. But show you care. Show that you care as much as the fans. That's what I've been banging about all season, because it's certainly been evident that you haven't. So you've got one chance to kind of make your name this season, and as much as anything else, you have a chance to register a victory that people will remember. They'll remember it for 2 reasons: that they stopped Rangers' possible invincible season.
Yeah.
So, if that can't motivate any of those guys, then they don't deserve to be where they are.
Yeah. Jim,
I think if you were playing Sunday, Tony, that's what I'd expect. Like, if you were playing, that's what I'd expect. I'd love to
occupy all 11 positions, Jim. I'd run around, you know what I mean?
And I think, the only point I'm trying to make is that from a fan's point of view, I totally endorse everything Tony just said there. Mm-hmm. But it's not fans that are playing. It's not Bertie Auld and Bobby Murdoch and Billy McNeil. It's not them, or Roy Aitken or Tommy Burns. It's not them. It's guys who are desperate to leave, who couldn't care less who won and who went through a season unbeaten. Not interested in that. Why would they be? We've only got 2 or 3 players who are bothered about that. So they must be the first names in the team sheet on Sunday to get the kind of performance that you said. You used the word hunger there, which is a really, really good word. And the point you made, Laura, about when 3 goals up, when you're 3 goals up against anyone, you're desperate to do more, score goals, because you play with confidence and you get momentum. And that's what the other team have got on Sunday. We don't have confidence, we don't have momentum. They do. Yeah. My concern is we go out and get a bit of a doing on Sunday, which should be another death by 1,000 cuts, which is 38 minutes in this week's bingo.
38 minutes, that's a record.
Longest it's been. If we can get out of Sunday without getting a doing, that'd be really good. Because all I'm doing is ranting today. Apologies for ranting today. I'm on a rant.
That's all right, Jim. No, I was going to come to you anyway about Joy Division 61 on Twitter. Thanks for commenting. Has said Griffiths up front with Turnbull, Sorrow and Brown in the middle. Now we've talked about Griffiths and how he'd be our preferred choice up front, but the implication there from what Joy Division is saying is potentially no place for Callum McGregor. What are your thoughts on that?
Me?
Yes.
Team I'd play would be, I would go for Bain on goals. I like Barkas to play, but this is too big a game to bring him back in. Forget Kenny, so we put either Ayer or Welsh to right back, bring on Beaton, he play at centre half. I think that's maybe why he was involved in the Aberdeen game. I'd go the diamond, I'd go Sorrow, hopefully Forrest, McGregor, Turnbull, and I'd go a Griff and a Yeti up front. And if Forrest doesn't make it, I play Dembele. Just kind of go for it. Keep the guys who are not going to be here out of the team. Scott Brown's not going to be here. Don't play him. No Elyounoussi, no Laxalt, no Kenny, no Duffy. Anyone else I've missed out? That's the team I would go with on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with that. But just on the Callum McGregor thing again. So you think there's still a place for him in the team? There's not an argument to say he could be rested.
No argument at all. Callum has to play. Yeah.
I'd love to
Tony,
see Dembele as well. I'd love to see wee Dembele. I mean, remember Martin O'Neill unleashed Sean Maloney, the 3-0 game when Moravchik scored twice and Larsson got his 50th, and everybody was like, "Who's this wee guy?" Pocket Rocket, and Maloney came on, and I think he missed a sitter actually. And Martin O'Neill said in the aftermatch that he was really despondent in the dressing room because he puts them away for fun and the training and stuff, and he was really annoyed that he didn't score. So I would nothing to lose, and the likes of Dembele's a player that would entertain and would get you going forward, you know. And I'm with Jim on that one. You know, I think if you went with a team like that, then that would at least show that you're trying to win, that you're not trying to avoid defeat. If you get what I mean, there's one and two different things here, you know. I want a team that's going to show me that they're trying to win, or certainly a formation that shows they're trying to win, and not, as Jim says, try and come out without getting a doing or a 0-0 and hold what you've got. Because I've watched Rangers the past couple of times as well, and I think they're there for the taking, because I think they've done the hard bit by winning the league, and a lot of them are kind of, you know, right, great. And they were up for it as much at the Ibrox game in the Cup as much as they got their noses in front early and never really looked like they were going to lose it. But they weren't brilliant, but they had enough in their armoury to keep Celtic at arm's length and at bay. So I want to see something a bit different from Celtic. I think they have
more players that I would categorise as sort of a high quality throughout the team. You know, I think we in this season especially have been trying to rely too much on certain individuals, but when you look through the Rangers team, you know, they've got Aribo, they've got Barisic, they've got Patterson, they've got McGregor in goals. You know, they've got a few players who are a cut above a lot of the rest of the league, and that has been a major factor for them. On the Dembele thing, Tony, I'll come back to you on that. Anytime I've seen him, I've been impressed. Anytime I've watched him, I've been out my seat excited to see what he's going to do. What do you think it is that's held him back from getting in, or what do you think it is that the Celtic coaching staff are reluctant to put him in? Because he must be of an age now where he should be breaking into the first team, you would think.
He looks like an entertainer, doesn't he? First and foremost, you know, and when he gets the ball, he's just a throwback to a wee Celtic winger, you know what I mean? So you just sort of think, right, go on, shows what you've got, and you're willing him to do well and the nice tricks and flicks and bags of skill. And I always get back to it and say, you know, the Celtic coaching team watch these guys in training every day, and the boy looks as if he's got natural ability. So if he's got natural ability and enthusiasm, what is it that's lacking? Is it an attitude thing? And if that's the case, then they should be telling you, you know, the management team should be saying, look, the reason he's not broke into the team is X, Y, Z. But 10 minutes here and 15-minute cameos there, you know, he always leaves you wanting more, Dembele. He always wants to be more. So, I think, what a stage. Go and say to him, look, you want to make your name and your mark, go out there and enjoy yourself. And tell him he's playing the whole game. Tell him to go and do something, you know, and be remembered. And, you know, if it's an attitude thing, then, you know, it's another one of those kind of players that, you know, people say Islam Feruz, and then remember when Rodgers signed with Charlie Masonda?
Yeah.
You know, and he was meant to be the next big thing, and you know, I think he played one good game in a European tie, set up a goal, and that was it. That was your lot. And, you know, so what's the problem with these guys? What is the problem here? You know, because there clearly is, because there seems to have been a production line of them, but not enough making the first team for whatever reason. Yet when you've witnessed them in action, they look like gifted footballers.
Jim, what's your thoughts on that? It seems to be there seems to be a barrier even when as Celtic supporters, you know, we're limited in what we see of Dembele, but what we do see would suggest that, you know, more chances should have been afforded to him before now. Do you think that there's got to be something behind the scenes surely that stopped him? You know, you're talking about a player who made his debut for the first team, 2 seasons ago now? And he's still not in the team. What do you think's behind that?
I think he's been unfortunate. I think if we'd have played out last season, we'd have won the league by end of March and had maybe half a dozen games that didn't mean anything. And I think that'd have been games maybe played Dembele, Patrick Klimala, and these kind of guys, give them a chance to show what they can do. And once we get into the 10 in a row season, what was going to be the 10 in a row season, every game is vital. I can understand. I mean, we've got a huge squad. It's not as if we've only got 11 players and he's the next one. With a huge squad, you have to give as many players as possible a game. Most of the games we played this season, but in the early part of the season, were very, very tight. So you're going to chuck on a young guy in a tight game. So I can understand Neil Lennon not doing that. But I think once the league was over, I think that was the time to start to give him some games. He's an entertainer, as you said, Tony, and we all love to see entertainers playing. I just thought the early part of the season, maybe the games were just too vital to risk throwing him in, because maybe he wouldn't track back. In this day and age, it's not just about going forward, it's about we do coming back. And maybe if you look at Sunday's game, I mean, he would have to make sure that the guy he's against, that he tracks back and he stops him putting crosses in, etc. Would you totally trust him to do that? I'm not so sure you would. So I think he's been unfortunate. I think maybe the season before last maybe was the time, because he was not in the cup final squad 2 seasons ago.
I think,
was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
the scene. Mm-hmm. And I think if we did because the start of the following season, I think we beat was that the season that we beat St Johnstone 7-0 at the start of the season? I'm losing track of seasons these days. I thought that we started winning games by a lot of goals, and once we started doing that was the time to give them a half an hour here, 20 minutes there, and we didn't do that then. And then all of a sudden we're in the big season, and maybe it's a bit too vital. Maybe these games are a bit too vital to play them. So maybe that's what's behind it.
It can work both ways as well. It could have been a wee spark, a positive.
Absolutely, yeah.
During the time when nothing was happening and we weren't getting results, I'm just playing devil's advocate in that one, not saying that there's a right or a wrong here, but, you will never know because he was never given a chance. But somebody like him, could have brought something to the team, offered something different, could have got the goals when they were struggling for, creative playing goals up front and in games. So I just know that if you're a Celtic supporter, you've wanted to see more of them up until now, Laura, as you've said,
Yeah.
And you can't. There's a root cause to that, and it's frustrating that supporters don't know why, because every time they've witnessed him in action, he's looked like a bright spark.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tony, in terms of when you use the word spark there, I think maybe now I've thought about it for the last 10 seconds, that maybe when Forrest got injured, maybe that was the time to give him a game. Because he's the guy we've missed. And if
it's a like for like kind of for me, maybe with that, sort of,
Jonathan Doug on YouTube has commented, Tony's Doug is a Gers fan. So I'm not sure about that, but we'll see.
What one? I've got 3 Dougs.
I'll leave that up to you to comment on. But just talking about Dembele and talking about, we've now, this is going to be the 3rd game against Steven Gerrard's team in the recent times, Tony. I think Dembele, what he would provide for me is a bit of unpredictability. At this point, Steven Gerrard could pick a team with his eyes closed to play against Celtic because we don't seem to change it up. Surely that's reason enough in itself to give it a go.
The unknown package, and as I said, with the instructions, go and enjoy yourself. Mm-hmm. Jim says about tracking back and stuff like that. I would say the others in the team, more experienced guys, protect him, look after him at all times, but he has to go and enjoy himself. Has to have that freedom to go out and do what he does best. When he picks up the ball, he's heading towards the opposition goal. As you say, that unpredictable, unknown quantity might be, again, going back to the word, a spark that Celtic need to maybe triumph on Sunday, which is why you would include him, because Celtic needs some kind of lift, some kind of, something different, and he offers you something different. And if Lee Griffiths is alongside him as well, if he can get the ball to those two, then you'll create again, and I think you'll score. So I'm with you, the unpredictability of him, and just the fact as well that I just want to see him. I just want to see him play a 90 minutes and let him play against Rangers and see how he copes.
Yeah,
I think also if you hear these names in the team, automatically you're dead excited.
Yeah,
what's going to happen next? And there's been too many games this season we haven't been excited about the team selection, but he would be high risk, and that's why I said I think John Kennedy's risk averse. And that's what I think. However, what I would say is the fact that he featured against Aberdeen and Near Beaton featured against Aberdeen. So maybe there's a chance, maybe that's his thinking. Get some minutes in the legs as he's going to use them on Sunday. So
to do
hopefully.
Hopefully he's thinking like that, yeah. But I agree, yeah. I mean, we've got nothing to lose.
No.
You know, so
we
could get a doing.
Do you see them getting a doing?
I don't know.
If we get by the first 60 minutes, no.
Well, the hesitation there in both these was kind of was enough for me.
But that's what baffles me so much about this, Jim, is we're talking in a situation here where we're reluctant to be too positive because we might get a doing. How have we ended up here from where we were even a year ago? The decline has been absolutely catastrophic.
I think we've covered all these things in previous podcasts. It would be you wouldn't want to bore people with over the same sort of stuff. I actually think Sunday might be, from their point of view, I mean, this is their last big test to try and keep this unbeaten league run going. So maybe they won't be that bored about it ending up as a draw. You know, I think if the shoe was on the other foot, we'd be looking to score a ton of goals like we did a couple of years ago. But as I say, I think this is their last real test. And maybe they might be cautious. They might think, well, you know, nothing each will do us as well. That keeps the run going. And they'll definitely not lose the last two games they've got. So maybe that's in their thinking as well.
Is it a nothing each doing, Jim? Is it a nothing each doing you get?
Backs to the walls, nothing each doing that.
Jim, I'll come to you on the James Forrest situation. We've skirted around him, but you know, John Kennedy did say that he's been in training and he's been managing fine this week. The comments, while not outright, did suggest that he might play some part on Sunday. As you said before, we are in desperate need of him back, aren't we, to at least challenge their fullbacks and give them something else to think about. He really has been a breath of fresh air since we've seen him come back into the team.
Tony said the word spark, and that's what James Forrest gives you. Tony said the word spark, and that's what James Forrest gives you. He gives you the spark. And I think they've got a couple of players, 2 or 3 players that gives them the spark, which kind of makes the difference. So we've missed him terribly this season. And, you know, there isn't a day that goes by that everyone thinks, well, what if he'd have played? What if we'd have signed him? What if that game had went there? What if that chance had been taken, etc.? That's why I'm keen for this season to be over, so we can stop saying, what if, and what if, and what if. But James Forrest, I think there's a lot of fans don't fancy him, but I think this season has shown that we're a far, far poorer team without James Forrest in the team. And what would be ideal is if we could find a James Forrest to play in the left wing. That would be ideal for next season, to have a bit of balance so we can do either wing. And we've been missing that left-sided James Forrest type player for a long while now. So hopefully that's something we can sort out for next season. Hopefully Eddie can sort that out for next season.
So Mikey Johnson's not your answer to that particular query?
At the moment, I don't think so. There must be players out there we can get. Must be players out there who can do a job.
Eddie Howe's on the case, Jim.
Good man, Tony. Good.
Tony, I've heard a lot of people say throughout this pandemic that they'll never take for granted somebody asking them to go for a drink or meeting up to go to the cinema or anything like that because we've not been able to do it. I think myself included, there are a lot of Celtic fans that have taken James Forrest for granted over the years, and having been without him this season, I don't think they're going to do that again.
He's one player that polarises opinion, isn't he? You know, when he's in the team, he still gets, his fair amount of catcalls and boos and shuriken when he's not on the top of his game. But I think this season proves a Celtic team without James Forrest in it is not functioning at 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and you can argue that all you want. His medal haul will tell you that. He's one of the most incredibly decorated Celtic players of all time. And it shows you what he brings to the team. You know, and Celtic, as Jim says, have missed him terribly so this season. And yeah, you take for granted certain things in life, but I think there'll be a lot of Celtic supporters kind of pondering and reflecting about maybe the fact that they've dished out a bit of stick to James Forrest in the past, and they'll certainly cut him a lot more slack when he comes back into the team and he proves his worth. Because he is, he's one of those players that he scored so many big important goals for Celtic. Yet if somebody was to pin you down and say name them, you'd be like, he just seems to kind of go under the radar a wee bit as an important Celtic player. But he scored in lots of Hampden finals, scored the opening goal in League Cup finals, Scottish Cup finals, stuff like that. So people, but as if you to pin you down and say, right, name Forrest's most important goals, you'd be like, right, because he's just not genuinely thought of in that bracket as a great Celtic player.
Yeah, I think his personality is as much part of that as anything. Scott Brown is a little bit more outspoken in interviews and things like that, and on the pitch, presents himself in a certain kind of way against the opposition. James Forrest never really does that, so perhaps that's part of the reason. But I'm going to put you on the spot, Jim. I'll come to you first to close out the Rangers conversation before we move on to the last topic. Your prediction for Sunday? What are you saying? We'll go for a full score.
0-0.
What are you thinking? 0-0. Backs to the wall.
0-0. 0-0. First goal scored on Monday. Yeah.
What about you, Tony? Are you going as conservative as that, or are you going a bit more, out there?
No, I'm going to take a 2-0 win. Griffiths and Belly.
I'll go halfway between and say 2-1 then, in that case. But Griffiths and Dembele I would take all day. That would be excellent. So obviously on A Celtic State of Mind we'll be covering the match on Sunday. As always, we have been covering every match this season. We'll be striving to do that next season, even when we are back in the stadiums in some form or other. So make sure and tune in for that on Sunday for the mid and post match coverage. Obviously you won't see Jim because he's a lot more sensible than that.
Don't touch a bit of large no. Far too raw.
But the last topic of the day I wanted to come on to was the last week or so there seems to be a lot more movement around the scenes. There seems to be a lot more Fergal Harkin's name has been distanced from things. Richard Hughes seems to be a lot more in the frame for coming in for some sort of directive football post or something along those lines. I have to say, Tony, coming to you first on it, it's all a bit confusing to me because that has all come to the fore at the same time as these rumours about John Kennedy potentially getting a sporting director's role. It smacks to me a little bit about, going back to what we talked about at the start of the pod, about a lack of a plan. Do you think that these are all just rumours that happen to be banging into each other, or do you think it is an indication of what's going on behind the scenes at the club, that it's all kind of sixes and sevens?
I've said before, I think a lot of that's rumour and paper talk, so, and I know a bit about that, so it's, it's never a bad rumour, let's put it that way. in newspaper circles, there's never a bad rumour, so, but I think, and I said the other day on a Monday that I'd like to think that I'm giving the board the benefit of the doubt and there is some sort of planning and structure going on, and every day Eddie Howe edges inches closer to taking over this job without actually taking it. And until there's a picture of him with a scarf above the head at his ground, then people won't believe it. But I just think Celtic have come so far with this now that it would be utterly catastrophic if it's not Eddie Howe, because you would be left scrambling in the dark. So, and I keep going back to the two main protagonists in all of this, Eddie Howe and Celtic board members, haven't spoken about it. So it leads me to believe that there's something concrete there, because you would come out and deny it if you're Eddie Howe, wouldn't you? If you were wanting a job down south.
You would think so, yeah.
Whatever, so, and the likes of Richard Hughes, Fergal Harkin, John Kennedy, I take all that and I just take everything that I read with a pinch of salt, because the truth will out, the truth will come. Eventually, somebody will have to be appointed the manager of Celtic. So, but you try and read between the lines, and I've been trying to do that all along with this Eddie Howe saga, as it's probably now becoming. And I think Celtic are quite confident they've landed a man, and I'm fairly confident that there's been work going on behind the scenes, because as Jim's already said, you don't want associated with this season and the failure of this season. So if you can sort of work remotely at the minute and assess everything, then you're still getting a head start on where you should be. And I think Celtic have learnt possibly from the mistakes of the past, and that's what's happening. I could be wrong, but I'm having an educated guess at that.
Jim, I wanted to ask your opinion on this, because I've heard Tony's already. I've expressed my own. There's been a lot of conversation amongst the Celtic support about, whether it's a good thing to give Eddie Howe everything he wants, whether it's too much power to let him name who the director of football is and who all his backroom staff are, or whether that's actually a good thing and that will help him, provide the success that we want him to provide. What are your thoughts on that? Would you rather he gets everything that he wants, or would you rather there was a little less control on his side in that frame?
I think because of the time scale of this and how long this has dragged on, it's become quite a complicated jigsaw. So there's all these different parts you're having to put together. If we'd have done this 6 months ago, it would have been a wee bit easier. I think you have to give him what he wants. If he's the guy you want, then you have to give him what he wants. I mean, how many staff are we talking about? Does he want 10 staff and we're only going to give him 8? Well, for another couple of people, who cares?
Yeah.
If Eddie Howe's the guy we want, you have to back him. Otherwise, we just repeat the mistakes of the past. Because when Neil Lennon came in, he was told, you're getting him and him. No issue. And then Neil Lennon, because he was more than happy to take the job, said, fine, that's okay. Eddie Howe is an in-demand manager. If you want an Eddie Howe and you want him to bring success, then you have to give him what he wants. Within reason. I don't think, as I said, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but if he wants 10 people and we only want to give him 8, just give him an extra 2 people. It may not be obviously as simple as that, but it will pay dividends further down the line, I think. So give him his plethora of staff. Just give him it.
Well, I'll close out the show by saying what I've said, I think, for about the past 6 weeks. You never know. We might be talking about an announcement this time next week. I highly doubt it the way things have gone, but we'll see. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved in the comments. Apologies that we didn't get to as many of them today. I will endeavour to do that more in the future, but there was a lot to talk about. Sorry, just one comment I wanted to come to there. No mention of David Cox. For anybody who, that was from Mark on YouTube. For anybody who didn't see, obviously the Albion Rovers player, David Cox, was allegedly subjected to some pretty serious abuse regarding his mental health. And I think it goes without saying that everybody at a Celtic State of Mind is with him and his determination to come out against people who would speak out against that type of thing. We made it clear when we talked about Neil Lennon a few weeks ago that abuse of somebody suffering mental health issues is not to be tolerated, and I think any investigation that comes, that hopefully the appropriate parties will be suitably punished for what happened there, and hopefully David Cox will find a place in football, regardless of his obvious hurt and upset after the game yesterday. So just wanted to say that just at the end there, for anybody thinking that we were skirting around the subject. But as I said, Celtic Rangers game on Sunday. We will be back for the coverage of that. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. This has been a Celtic State of Mind. Thanks very much.